What if I told you the man now guarding every secret this country has never once appeared on the radar of the Senate's top intelligence watchdog? Not once. And when that watchdog was asked his name under oath, the answer was 3 words: I never heard. That's not a resume gap. That's the entire intelligence apparatus handed to a ghost, while a January 6th rioter was placed inside the Pentagon's own counterterrorism unit. And through all of this administration was signing licenses pouring billions into the war machine threatening American lives every single month. This isn't incompetence. This is what it looks like when the people in charge stopped pretending.
Representative Keating is recognized.
Chairman, for the record, I ask unanimous consent to submit the President's financial disclosure form, which will detail those dealings that were referred to by the ranking member.
Without objection.
Secretary, thank you for being here. In conjunction with your job, you're also the National Security Advisor with access to the most sensitive intelligence secrets our countries and other countries have in the world. But before this, you had these 2 positions. You had a distinguished career as a member and a chair for 5 years of the Senate Intelligence Committee up to last year. And you and Senator Warner are some of the most respected and knowledgeable people at that time and voices in the entire intelligence community, earning the trust of Democrats and Republicans alike, Senator and House members, and other countries. So with all your Intelligence Committee experience, and now as Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, and all those years of experience, have you ever, specifically in the context of the intelligence community, heard the name Bill Keating?
In the context of intelligence?
That's what I said.
No. No, I have
never heard his name. Okay, thank you for answering that.
Well,
never even heard his name. Given all your years of experience and your position now, never heard the name. For the record, Bill Keating is a person Donald Trump has chosen for the acting director of national intelligence with no experience in the intelligence field, whose misuse, widely reported, of confidential information led to the prosecution of the president's political enemies, is now the person in charge of the nation's most closely guarded intelligence when he couldn't even conduct himself appropriately as the federal housing finance director. Now, Secretary, have you ever heard of the name Ira Zahari?
Who's that?
You've never heard the name Ira Zahari?
I mean, it doesn't ring a bell off the top.
In the context of security? Well, let me tell you. Mr. Zahari pleaded guilty for breaking into the Capitol on January 6th through a broken window, wielding a metal rod as a weapon. And Donald Trump appointed him to a team at the Pentagon focused on irregular warfare and, of all things, counterterrorism. That's ironic, given that he participated in one of the most significant incidents of domestic terror in our country's history. I think it's shameful, the people that are being appointed, and I think it's also shameful, some of the people that have been fired. Now, I want to move to Iran, because given your nuclear and intelligence background, which is extensive and appreciated and respected, I'm sure you're aware that Ukraine, the country at the time with the 3rd largest nuclear arsenal, peacefully turned over their nuclear weapons in conjunction with the Budapest Memorandum, and in exchange for the U.S. commitment to defend Ukraine if it ever came under threat. The U.S. gave their word to Ukraine they would defend them. And I found this amazing. In your opening remarks, as you took us all over the world, and you mentioned 15 different incidents where you have interceded. 15, the top 15. Not once did you mention Ukraine when you were prioritizing the achievement that's there. Now let me go on.
Tried to stay under 5 minutes.
Let me go on. Oh, you tried to stay, yeah, please.
Well,
it's not funny. It's not funny, Secretary. Now,
what's not funny
in Iran now.
Well, you don't.
In Iran now, I reclaim my
here.
time. I reclaim my time, Mr. Chairman.
You guys make these statements and no one
He
can
is
respond.
interrupting me.
Do something about it.
I'm doing it. I'm asking you to reclaim those seconds back.
No.
Now in Iran, what goes around comes around, Mr. Chairman. Now in Iran, the Trump administration issues a general license to Russia, providing billions in oil profits every month, several billion every month, fueling Putin's war machine. You didn't mention that in your opening remarks. And then this is a war of aggression of Russia attacking Ukraine, which we gave in our agreement, and this is to a country that's assisting us in Iran, Ukraine, and helping a country with a war machine that are aiding Iran against us and putting our service members in jeopardy. Look, we have an opportunity as members just today to vote on the Ukraine Support Act. I hope we do it, and I am confident that we have bipartisan support. But I hope this administration will act on its own. They could do things themselves that you didn't mention, like rescind these general licenses, complete a bilateral drone agreement with Ukraine, provide direct military assistance that has access to Ukraine, implement comprehensive sanctions packages,
Representative's
and condemn
time has expired.
the aggression.
Representative
Thank
Smith
you, Mr.
of New
Chairman,
Jersey
for taking
is
up
recognized.
my time and squandering it. That's not how a chairman should act.
Representative Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, if you need a moment to respond to
Well, I also didn't mention Cuba because I literally handwrote what I was going to say to you guys, and I told you I was going to submit the written for the record, and I think everybody understands Cuba's a priority for me. Just on the Ukraine front, I'll address it now if it's okay with your time that I could do so. I think it's well documented that we've been very involved in trying to get the two sides to the table. We've invested a lot of time in it. Unfortunately, so to this point, neither side has been willing to make concessions, particularly on the Russian side, necessary in order to bring peace about. We remain ready to play any role we can in that context of bringing a peace about because we think the war in Ukraine, devastating war, has no military solution. It can only be solved through a diplomatic route, and it's been unfruitful. I would characterize it as the ongoing challenges. That said, let's be clear, we are not, to be fair and to be frank, we are not impartial mediators in that war, okay? We don't provide weapons to Russia. We only provide weapons to Ukraine. We don't impose sanctions on Ukraine. We only impose sanctions on Russia. So we have clearly taken a side. We continue to sell weapons to Ukraine, by the way, through the Pearl program, unimpeded by what's happened in the Middle East or anywhere else. And look, we'd love to see that come to a negotiated settlement. As of right now, the prospects don't look great that either side is prepared to make the concessions necessary in order to reach an agreement. But we stand ready, and we've engaged and invested a tremendous amount of high-level time on that conflict over the last year. I think it's a source of frustration for the world. Hopefully this year will bring better news. I don't have any news for you on that front today, but we are ready. As I've expressed to both sides repeatedly, we're ready to step in and play whatever positive role we can to bring that devastating and escalating war to an end.
Mr. Secretary, thank you very much.
Okay, let me start with what actually happened in that room, because the way it looks on the surface and what it actually means are two very different things. Keating didn't walk in there to argue policy. He walked in to use Marco Rubio's own resume as a weapon against him, and it worked. Rubio chaired the Senate Intelligence Committee for 5 years. He had access to the most classified information in the country. He earned the trust of Democrats, Republicans, and foreign intelligence partners alike. So Keating starts there and slowly, deliberately builds him up. And then he asks a name, not a policy question, not a hypothetical, a name. The name of the person now sitting at the top of all 17 American intelligence agencies, the person who decides what the president sees, what gets acted on, and what gets buried. Rubio had never heard of him. Let that land for a second. The former chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, now Secretary of State, had never once encountered the name of the man currently running the entire American intelligence apparatus. That's not a resume gap. That's a structural alarm going off in real time. Now I went and looked into Bill Polt's background because somebody had to. His previous job was director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, the mortgage market regulator, not signals intelligence, not counterterrorism, not foreign threat assessment, mortgages. And in that role, reports indicate he misused confidential information in ways that triggered a federal investigation. So the person now holding the most sensitive intelligence position in the United States government has two relevant credentials: no intelligence experience and a federal investigation for misusing confidential information in an unrelated field. I'm not editorializing, that's just the sequence of facts. And what Keating did, by asking Rubio if he'd ever heard the name, was force that sequence into the record without saying any of it himself, because Rubio's answer said it all. Then came the second name, Zahari. Again, Rubio had never heard of him. Let me be precise here because precision is the whole point. This individual pleaded guilty to entering the Capitol on January 6th through a broken window, carrying a metal rod, That is the legal record. Guilty plea, federal court. And this same individual was placed on a Pentagon team focused on irregular warfare and counterterrorism. I'll give you a moment with that. A person who participated in what federal prosecutors classified as domestic terrorism was given a role in the unit designed to fight domestic terrorism. The irony isn't even subtle enough to call irony anymore. It's a direct contradiction sitting in plain sight, daring you to notice it. But here's the larger mechanism Keating was exposing. When you place people in sensitive positions based on political loyalty rather than demonstrated competence, you don't just risk bad decisions. You change what information flows and to whom. Intelligence allies, the UK, Germany, Israel, the Five Eyes Network, share information with the United States based on the assumption that it will be handled professionally and confidentially. That assumption depends entirely on who's receiving it. When the person at the top of the receiving end raises serious questions about trustworthiness, allies don't file a formal complaint. They just quietly share less. You never get a memo saying, "We stopped sending you the good stuff." You just gradually stop getting the good stuff. That's how institutional credibility dies. Quietly, without an announcement. Now let's talk about Rubio's response to the Ukraine section, because this is where the hearing gets complicated. Rubio said something technically accurate. We sell weapons to Ukraine, not Russia. We sanction Russia, not Ukraine. We are not impartial mediators. He's right about all of that as a formal matter. But Keating wasn't challenging the formal position. He was pointing at the gap between what we say and what we do financially. Here's the context that matters. In 1994, Ukraine held the third largest nuclear arsenal in the world and gave it up voluntarily. In exchange, the United States, the UK, and Russia signed the Budapest Memorandum, a commitment to protect Ukraine's sovereignty if it ever came under threat. Ukraine gave up the weapons that could have defended itself in exchange for a promise. And then Russia invaded, twice. Keating's point isn't that the U.S. is doing nothing. His point is that this administration issued general licenses allowing Russia to generate billions in oil revenue every month. Revenue that directly funds the Russian military actively helping Iran develop drone technology and weapons. The same Iranian military that has been targeting American personnel and interests in the region. So follow the chain. We pressure Iran. Iran gets weapons from Russia. Russia funds those weapons with oil revenue we licensed. Our service members face threats from systems Russia helped Iran build, and we call this a coherent foreign policy. That's not a partisan criticism. That's a cause and effect problem. And when Keating laid it out, Rubio spent his remaining time talking about the difficulty of peace negotiations, not about the licensing question, which is, itself, a kind of answer. I want to zoom out here because there's a pattern underneath all of this that's easy to miss when you're focused on the individual moments. What this hearing revealed is a government running on two completely separate tracks. On track one, the official posture, sanctions, weapons sales, alliances, peace negotiations. Everything sounds recognizable. Everything fits inside familiar frameworks. On track two, personnel and financial decisions that directly contradict that posture. People with no relevant experience, and in some cases active legal problems, placed in the most sensitive positions in government. Oil licenses that fund the adversaries we claim to be confronting. And here's the dangerous part about two-track governance. The consequences don't show up immediately. They show up later, as capability gaps nobody can explain, as missed warnings that arrive too late, as adversaries who watch the gap between our words and our financial decisions and quietly conclude our threats aren't credible. None of that arrives with a formal announcement. It arrives as a pattern of things that stopped working, and by the time you notice, the institutional knowledge that would have prevented it is already gone. Keating didn't prove a crime. He didn't need to. He proved something more durable. That the people placed in charge of protecting this country couldn't pass the most basic test, being recognized by the people who spent years building the system those names now sit on top of. That's not a partisan problem. That's an everyone problem. And if these hearings pass without that sinking in, the consequences won't wait for anyone to catch up. Subscribe because these moments move fast, and the implications take a lot longer to arrive than most people expect.